Now to be joined by Professor Alex van der Heever, and we are talking about social security and how social security could make life better in South Africa. No, sorry, I'm sorry, we've got the wrong topic. My apologies for that. We are looking at the criminal justice system, and the question we are raising is it the only option for survivors of gender-based violence in South Africa? Professor Alex, good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mr. Wadee. Actually, I'm not Professor van Heerden. I'm Tzvi Brivik, an attorney at law in Cape Town.
Wow. I've got some. Well, sorry. My apologies. I think we've just got our wires crossed here, but I'm sorry. Yes, Professor Brivik, or is it Mr. Brivik?
Mr. Right? Mr. Brivik, Professor still to come.
Okay, fine, brilliant. Well, you are the director at LegalLyons in Brivik, and this is obviously you are the founder of LegalLyons, and we are talking about gender-based violence and the option of pursuing civil action against perpetrators. Now, at this point in time, when one looks at gender-based violence, and we know it's a major issue in South Africa at this point in time, and there are many cases that are not even reported. And there is a lot of, I would say, there is a lot of unknown factors with regards to gender violence, but more importantly, in terms of pursuing the options of bringing the perpetrators to book. And, we know that we've got obviously criminal options, but what you are saying is there are other options that are available to victims who fall for or who become victims to gender-based violence.
Thank you, Mr. Wadee. That's absolutely correct. And one must just bear in mind that gender-based violence is a symptom of unequal power, largely perpetrated against women. And it's not just physical violence, it also constitutes psychological, financial, moral, and sexual harassment. So it's a wide gamut of acts which are unwelcome and which are perpetrated on women. And what we're suggesting in the article is not that the civil option be substituted or take place instead of the criminal option, but rather that it is a way of holding perpetrators accountable. And there are a number of reasons as for why the civil justice system may trump the criminal system for these particular victims.
Yes. Now, I think one of the critical issues here is when we talk about legal options, whether it's criminal or civil, is do victims always have access to legal assistance so that they could weigh their options and at the end of the day make absolutely certain what option would be the best option to take?
So in terms of the Sexual Offences Act, which is a legislation dating back some years, there is a mechanism for a criminal protection officer to be appointed to assist victims of sexual harassment. But of course, for the civil action to be pursued, all the victim needs to approach is an attorney who's seasoned or experienced in civil litigation. And when we refer to civil litigation in this context, what we're actually referring to is a claim for damages. So it's a claim for a monetary amount. So the onus of proof in order to establish the claim and be successful is far lesser than that which the state or the prosecutor would have to overcome as a hurdle if a claim was made against in a criminal court. As you know, in a criminal court, the prosecutor needs to be able to prove the claim beyond a reasonable doubt, while in a civil claim, it's on a balance of probabilities. So although the purpose of the litigation or the claim would not be to seek a criminal sentence or punishment, but it would be to seek redress. And the redress, as I say, is monetary. And bearing in mind, as I say, that the harm can be sexual, psychological, and monetary, the redress can be quite substantial, depending on the circumstances of the particular case.
Yes. Now, also, I think one of the biggest problems in South Africa is many of these cases are not reported at all.
Mm.
And this is the reason why we are seeing the scourge of gender-based violence on the increase all the time, perpetrators that are not being brought to book. And is legal or the lack of access to legal assistance a factor here? And this would mean that this is the reason why these cases are not reported, or because people just don't have access to the legal system.
So people are intimidated by the legal system. The legal system can be seen to be out of reach for many of these victims, bearing in mind that they're coming from a position of being psychologically or physically repressed. So reaching out to somebody outside of that toxic relationship is a very difficult and a very, very brave step for anyone to take. And they need to know that when they take that step, they will have confidentiality. They will be able to seek legal advice and be told exactly what remedies they have, and that they will be, to some extent, be afforded protection once they pursue the litigation. And that is the difficulty. When you mention, Mr. Wadee, that very few of these cases are reported, it's largely because there's an interdependence between the victim and the perpetrator. And it's only when that interdependence ceases, and that can be many, many years after the date of the actual assault, that the victim then has the capacity, the wherewithal, and the courage to pursue this further.
Yes, and I think what you mentioned is very, very important here is when one looks at timing, because timing is absolutely critical, particularly when you are a victim of gender-based violence. If you have been a victim, whether it's for a short while, for a very, very long time, it is the scars that impact on the victim, and the longer the litigation takes or the longer the legal option is being pursued, it definitely does make matters worse.
Absolutely. And you raised two very interesting points. The first is a question of time, and that the courts have realized that there is this necessity to provide the victim time within which to perhaps break ties with the perpetrator, but also for the full effect of the victimization to come to the fore. So it allows for the victim to pursue the action, even if it's a minor child, within 1 year of reaching the age of majority, or within 3 years of when that victim reasonably becomes aware of the consequences, or what we refer to as the sequelae of that. The second point which you raised is the length of time of the litigation. That is an unfortunate state of affairs with both the civil litigation and the criminal system. Just as a point of interest, most gender-based violence claims or sexual harassment claims are postponed on average 10 times before they're actually finalized. So you can imagine how traumatizing that is for the victim.
Well, we're going to have to leave it at that, Mr. Brivik, and I must apologize for the miscommunication early on. But thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wadee. Have a good day.
Thank you. Well, that's obviously a very, very important topic that needs to be pursued. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back.